Well, only one place to start. For the second time in a week, Chelsea have been involved in one of the great Premier League games. Just 6 days after that hugely eventful match at Tottenham, their 4-4 draw with Manchester City was packed full of drama, excitement and another VAR debate. Mauricio Pochettino called the contest unbelievable, while Daniel Sturridge compared it to a basketball match. Here's a very happy Monday to Sue Smith and to Danny Mills. Boring that, wasn't it?
Monday. Yeah, a bit boring.
Yeah, those Super Sunday games failed to deliver once again. Was it another testament that maybe after 4 points in a week against Tottenham and against Manchester City, that Chelsea's young boys under Mauricio Pochettino are slowly turning into men?
Yeah, I think you can say that. You looked at the game on Monday night, which had everything in terms of entertainment and how fun it was. But I think yesterday they showed the quality as well. So they obviously had the entertainment, but the quality was really there. I think to go toe-to-toe with a very good Manchester City side is, it shows how they are evolving. They are a fantastic group of young players, a brilliant manager. And I think when you are on this path to becoming the team that they want to be, you're going to have bumps in the road, and that's what they've had at times. We spoke probably previously about the goal scoring and they've got themselves into great positions, but maybe not being able to put the ball in the back of the net. The fact that they're scoring goals, consecutively in these last 2 games is a huge positive, I think, for Pochettino. But yeah, to go toe-to-toe with a brilliant top-quality side like Manchester City it's got to be a huge boost.
Danny, Jamie Carragher said post-match that the biggest asset Chelsea have is their manager. Would you agree with him?
Oh, definitely. I think he's been there, seen it, not quite done it, as I'm sure a lot of people say. Success that he had in France, people are still a little bit sceptical about, because you do have the best team, no matter what you're expected, to win the league. But he's obviously good at developing young players, good at bringing young players through. He's got a good mix in there at the moment. Thiago Silva, still magnificent, at the age of, what is he now?
39.
Yeah, he's pushing.
4th Premier League player to score at 39.
Pushing 40. Yeah, it's ridiculous. He looks and plays outstanding. Raheem Sterling, one of their best players yesterday. They've got players to come back as well. Jackson's done OK, but they've got Nkunku to come back in. Big players that will be like new signings maybe come January. So I think, they're heading in the right direction. It was always going to take time. Chelsea has been a huge transitional period for the last 18 months, I would probably say. Different managers, different recruitment policy. I think give Mauricio time and definitely he will get it right.
Sue, Danny made the point there about the upheaval we've seen over the past year or so, maybe a touch longer than that. Did Raheem Sterling suffer as much as any from that last season, because he didn't hit the ground running as many expected him to after that move from City?
Yeah, he did, and it's always going to be difficult when you're a player in a side that, like you say, there is a lot of upheaval in and around you. He's playing in different positions, which didn't probably fit to his style and his way of playing. He's said in pre-season he's sort of changed his diet, he's worked on a certain fitness regime, and he looks so sharp. He looks rejuvenated, and the quality that he provided yesterday in terms of an attacking outlet, he was constantly proving, I suppose, just asking Manchester City questions in terms of his ability on the ball, but then it's his work rate off the ball as well, how he was getting back and putting in challenges. He just looked a player that is really in good form at the moment, and, credit to him.
As a defender, the last thing you want is a player picking the ball up and running at you at pace, time after time after time. It only takes once or twice that as a defender you've got to slip up where he gets past you and it's a goal. Doesn't matter. If he runs at you 20 times and he only gets past you twice, he scores 2 goals. That's it. As a defender you think, well, I've done most of my job quite well. But the 2 times he gets in, he scores. And that's what he does. He's a constant threat. Running at people, driving at people. OK, not always the most elegant the way he runs with the ball sometimes. It bobbles around from time to time, but his determination, his desire to get into those positions, and that was the second goal, where he pushes it across. That's what he's got, and it seems like he's got that hunger and desire back, and that has to come from the manager and a little bit of stability and the belief that he's going to play. Nothing worse, and Sue will tell you, it's nothing worse as a player thinking, well, if I play well, I'm not going to play next week. That does to you something sort of mentally. Yeah. That's really hard to deal with at times. I play well, I play next week. That's what you want, and build that confidence, and he seems to have that at the moment.
I think he's just so sorry. I just think he's so key in terms of that leadership role, like you said as well. You know, you've got Thiago Silva in there. You've also got Raheem Sterling with a group of such young players that are learning, playing in the Premier League, playing for Chelsea. You've got him sort of leading by example. I think he's relishing that, you can see the standards on the pitch are there too.
Just on the subject of him not being picked for things, so he's not in the England squad. Do you think there is an element from Gareth Southgate that, because he knows Raheem Sterling so well, that if he wants to leave him out of a few squads, he knows exactly what he's getting if he suddenly picks him next June when the Euro squad is announced?
Absolutely, and if he continues the form that he's in, there's absolutely no doubt that he will get picked, because we know that there's a lot of very good players in those positions, but he just has to keep playing at the levels that he's playing at. But I totally agree, he's got 80-odd caps, has he, for England? We know exactly what he can do, and he knows exactly what he can do, so he's just got to keep performing at those.
There's a lot of good players in those positions. You know, and England have been playing well and doing well in those positions. It's hard to get into it. But look what Gareth did with Kyle Walker. Left him out, I think, on 48 caps when he got left out, and everyone went, oh, that's it. He's not even going to get to 50 caps. Now you put him in and you think, well, he's one of England's first picks on the team sheet. After Harry Kane, captain material. Probably he's now captain of Manchester City. So Gareth's not adverse to bringing players back into the squad.
Yeah, said that,
if Raheem keeps playing well, he will come back in. He's just got to be consistent and force his way in. Before the last World Cup, Euros, can't remember which way when it was, when Raheem Sterling was going through a bit of a tricky spell, people were going, oh, should Raheem be in the squad? Gareth put him in, and he was our best player during the Euros. He was magnificent. So Gareth trusts him, he knows what he can do. If he keeps fit and performs to this level, I'm sure he'll be recalled.
One player who has been added to the England squad this morning, if you've not seen the news, Chelsea's Cole Palmer, Manchester City's Rico Lewis and Aston Villa's Ezri Konsa have all been called up for the next couple of qualifiers. Sue, is it too simplistic to say Manchester City made a mistake selling him?
Yeah, it is, because I think sometimes as a player you want to play games, and I suppose you've got to praise him in terms of he was at Manchester City, we've seen him a handful of times, but him as a player wanted to play more, and he felt going to Chelsea he would get that opportunity, and now he's showing the quality that I think we all know he had, the potential that he had. Manchester City got a lot of money for that potential, but we're certainly seeing a player. Pochettino was praising him in his interview yesterday, saying what an intelligent footballer he is, that how he can tuck back into midfield, he knows the positions to get into from a defensive perspective, on the ball, off the ball, and then the quality that he provides when he goes forward, and the confidence that he has to be able to step up and take such a pressure penalty. We've seen him do that before when he took the ball off Raheem Sterling and took that. So he's got that confidence in his ability, and to do it against your old side, to even the game up, I think all credit has to go to him.
Just to pick back up on something you said a little bit earlier on, Danny, despite the fact they've scored 8 goals in a week and Nicholas Jackson has been responsible for half of them, are you still to be convinced that he is exactly what Chelsea need?
Oh, definitely. He missed some chances in that Tottenham game, as well. The chances that he had weren't the most difficult. OK, except he has to be in that position to score those goals. It was against 9 men, against a Tottenham team with a completely makeshift back four.
A very high line as well.
Yeah, he's got to do it in the big games. He came up yesterday, he was again in the right place, right time, and again, that's an art form in itself. But I think, you listen to that, Jamie Carragher's commentary, he hadn't done an awful lot to that point. You can do that if you're Harry Kane or Erling Haaland, when you're scoring 1-2 goals every single game. For Jackson, I think he needs to add a little bit more. He's still young, he's still learning. He's been thrown in probably ahead of time because of the injuries that Chelsea had. He's clearly talented, if not he wouldn't be there. But it's like all young players. It's finding that consistency, finding that model that works week in, week out, rather than being an 8, 9 out of 10 one week and a 5-4 the next. You've got to have those 7s and 8s consistently, and that's what he's got to find somehow.
So it's an interesting one, because actually if you spoke to Chelsea fans at the start of last week, a lot of them would say these are 2 good games for us because we're good when teams come onto us, give us plenty of space. And actually what we need to crack is some of the results they've had this season. 0-0 away at Bournemouth, lost 1-0 at home to Forest, lost 2-0 at home to Brentford. That actually the next 3 are tough as well, Newcastle, Brighton and Manchester United. But it's the games where teams sit at Stamford Bridge and say, go on then, break us down, where Chelsea have to prove something.
It is, and that shows that it is still a team that's a work in progress, because we've said that when they played Arsenal. I thought they were excellent for large parts of that game. They let Arsenal get back into the game, but actually the tactics were spot on, and it suited them because the team was coming on to them. Liverpool, another game where I thought they performed well. You know, the transition game is where Chelsea are strong. They've got that pace, they've got that power to get in beyond and use those spaces. But yeah, it is. That's just where they have to work out when teams do sit back and they do make it tight and compact. How are we going to break this team down? So obviously when the players start coming back, I think Reece James being back is huge for them. You mentioned Nkunku. I think when he comes back, you know, I'm sure they were things that they were working on in pre-season, and then obviously get all these injuries, and you suddenly then have to change and find maybe a new way of sort of playing. So it will come. It's just patience and time.
It's where Jackson's hold-up play probably isn't the greatest. And then when you think, OK, if it's Mudryk on one side, Sterling on the other, what do they want to do? They want to get the ball. They want to run at players. They want that space in behind. So when a team plays very defensive and plays very, very deep, there's no space to run in behind. And they're not dribblers in the terms of like how Foden dribbles with the ball or Bernardo Silva dribbles with the ball, coming inside, little tight spaces. They want to run with the ball and they want to get one-on-one and go beyond. And that's when teams sit deep. Do they have that little bit of guile in that number 10 position? Do they have that player that can drop in a little bit? Because Jackson's not going to do it. Who's going to play that little pass through, you know, in behind, in between the fullback and the centre half, in between the two centre halves? I think as time goes on, they'll need to develop, and that could be Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
You know, as he starts maybe to play a little bit further forward. That could be his role. But again, Chelsea, I think, is just a work in progress.
Let's talk about Manchester City then and their part in yesterday's 4-4 draw at Stamford Bridge. It's the first time, Danny, in 882 games as a manager that Pep Guardiola has seen his team score 4 and concede 4 in the same match. Was it a rare occurrence of his team being out of control or lacking control at times yesterday?
I was a little bit surprised with the way the game went. City are normally incredibly good at managing the game. Dominating possession, getting a goal in front, even in tight games, and then just starving the opposition of the ball. This was end to end, you know, right to the very end, which is very, very unlike City. I think Pep will be disappointed with that, and disappointed maybe with a couple of goals that they conceded. But yeah, I think fair play to Chelsea. You know, they went for it. You know, they went at them, and they were happy to leave themselves a little bit exposed at the back to play that open football. And of course, you know, they end up getting themselves a point out of it.
It is that delicate balance of risk and reward playing City, isn't it, Sue? Because you do feel that teams who just sit there and are waiting, sitting ducks, that eventually City will find a way through, that you have to offer something going in the other direction, as Chelsea did. Yeah,
because there's not many teams that do what Chelsea did yesterday and actually go toe-to-toe, because you know what Manchester City can do, and we saw what they can do. So, yeah, a lot of teams will play against Manchester City and they'll sit back and they'll look to be really well organised and look to, when they do break, be sort of clinical with that. But you just think with Manchester City and with the quality that they have, and because they've had to do it for so many years, the ability to be able to break down the low block, they will do it at some point. So, yeah, you have to praise Manchester City and how that game went, because like you said, it was end to end. And I think when Rodri scored, I thought, oh, wow, Manchester City.
I think we all thought, yeah, job done.
Yeah.
That's the stuff of champions,
almost.
Yeah,
they'll now keep the ball for the next 10, 15 minutes, whatever it might be. Chelsea might get half a chance at best in that time, but it continued to be ridiculously open. And I think that's probably where Pep will be most disappointed. It's very unlike them to not manage the game.
We have to talk about City's goal machine, the man who just cannot stop finding the net at the moment. Manuel Akanji, Danny, 3 and 3 for him. Playing in that John Stones role yesterday of stepping into midfield. How do you think it went?
It's a tough role to... John Stones has done that exceptionally well. He's a very, very intelligent footballer. He's fantastic on the ball. I think it does make it easier to do that when you're playing in a team of City's quality, when every time you get the ball, you've got 3 or 4 options to pass it every single time. Even if you pick the 2 wrong options, you've still got 2 good options, to give the ball to. But I think, you know, there are teams are going to try and copy it. It's almost impossible to copy. Teams have tried to copy Manchester City the way that they play. You've got to have some of the best players in the world to do that, and then they are so well drilled. And we spoke to Bernardo Silva after the Manchester derby. and he says Pep is relentless on the training ground. Every single player must have 3 options at least on the ball every time he receives the ball. And that means players off the ball are working hard, running, finding space, creating space for others, creating time for other players. And that's where they can pop it about, which looks so effortlessly at times. So, yeah, it's a role that he's developed because City are so good at making space for each other and so good at keeping the ball.
Just the other point about Pep's demands as well, Sue, is that you can't really be a one-position player anymore for Manchester City, apart from the fella behind us who plays up front, and that's what he does. But, you know, you're a centre-back who plays right back or sometimes in central midfield, or Bernardo Silva can pretty much play anywhere, can't he? That you have to be flexible in this Manchester City team.
You do, and that's what he wants. And the way that Pep is always evolving his side as well. You know, we keep seeing different... You look, sometimes I'll do a Manchester City game and I'll look at the team. You can't predict, can you? No. You can't predict who's going to play where because he's got players that can do that. And that's, you know, a lot of coaching on the training ground, making sure that these players know... And
that's... Sorry, so that's what Bernardo Silva said as well. He said, we all have our strongest position. We all know, or we all think we know what our strongest position is, but we are expected to be able to fill in at any point. And whether that be for 10 seconds or 10 minutes, Pep demands that we know the other players' positions. And they work off almost like if you look at City, they work almost, it's like a grid system on the pitch. Yeah. You never see 2 players stood side by side. They always, if I run into Sue's space, she runs off into someone else's, and they're constantly moving. And this is why you do get John Stones playing right wing, Bernardo Silva playing left back at times. Erling Haaland doesn't. He's the only one that gets away with it.
I think we'll allow him to do that.
And he stays as the centre. But everybody else is very, very fluid in what they do. And that's not by chance. People just think that's good players. That's an excruciatingly difficult amount of time on the training ground to make sure that works perfectly like it does for City.
Sue, I'm loath to ask this question because I probably feel around October, November of each year you can find a football show where we say, are there chinks in their armour? Because they're one of the greatest teams we've seen of the modern era. But is there anything to suggest that maybe it won't take 95, 96 points to topple them this season, or are they going to go on one of their runs again? Oh,
it's just so hard to ever say anything negative about Manchester City because of the quality that they have. And Pep Guardiola said he's quite happy with where they are at the moment. They've qualified in the Champions League. They're top of the table. You still look that they've got De Bruyne to come back into that side. They're obviously bringing in, they're, integrating Guardiola and Doku. So new players are still integrating into the team. The fact that it's usually around February, isn't it, where they really hit the top form. And we saw last season where Arsenal were doing so well, but we kept saying, but we know that Manchester City can go on this unbelievable run and catch them. And that's exactly what they did. So I just think they're in a brilliant place. Yes, there's other teams in and around them that are performing at a good level, but Manchester City are just up there for me.
City will have 90 points plus.
Will anyone else?
I think it'd be very... If you finish above City, you win the league. Simple as that. There certainly won't be 2 teams that do it. There might be a couple that run them close, but generally speaking, you can only afford to lose 4 games in a season if you're going to go on and win the league. That's roughly about the marker where that is. They've lost 2 already. They might lose another 2, but that'll be it. Their points tally again will be. I'd be surprised if it's not 90 plus this season.